Hi everyone, this is the last video before half term and also the last video around the first moon landing chronological report that you've been writing. Today's task really is just your editing, so we need to do some editing on it before we send it in. The first thing you need to do is you need to check that you've got everything in all of your paragraphs. So let me go through them. The first thing that you should have is an introduction paragraph made of 3 sentences. The first sentence explains what a chronological report is. The second explains what this chronological report is all about. And the third sentence gives me one mini fact about the first moon landing. Your next paragraph should have the title Before the First Moon Landing. And in there, you should be detailing all the events in time order that happened before the first moon landing. So things such as taking pictures of the moon, finding a safe place to land, the other Apollo missions, which you can research into, the first spacewalk. You would mention Yuri Gagarin from the USSR going into space and doing an orbit around the Earth. All of those things that happened before the first moon landing. Check through, make sure you fill that full of facts. Your third paragraph should be all about the moon landing itself. So that starts off by introducing the 3 astronauts, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins. It gives the exact day. I'm not going to tell you. That's a research task if you haven't already got it. The exact day that they blasted off into space from Houston, Texas. No, Houston was where the scientists were. Sorry, Florida, from Florida, on the Saturn V rocket. Explain that it took them 4 days to reach the moon. When they got there, they circled around the moon and saw that it had a dark side. And then the Eagle broke off from the orbiting module and landed safely on the moon. Then you would talk about what they did on the moon. So they conducted experiments, collected moon samples, spent about 2 hours on there. The words that Neil Armstrong said, that's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind, planting the American flag, and then returning to the Eagle. Your next paragraph, which would be called the return home, or which should be called the return home, sees the astronauts leaving the moon, taking the journey back towards Earth, coming through the heated atmosphere. And it might be interesting if you can explain that the friction of the atmosphere really heats up that ship, so it has to be flame-proof, heat-proof. Landing in the Pacific Ocean, opening those parachutes, being collected by the helicopter, put into quarantine 3 weeks, where President Nixon came to visit them, and then them being heroes thereafter. Finally, your last paragraph, based on the live lesson that I did, should all be about recent space travel or space today, and can include things like SpaceX, missions to Mars, the Virgin Galactic, and even recent news. There's a lot of recent news around Mars and about things that they've sent there to look for life as well, or traces of life that might have existed beforehand. Once you've done all of that, and it's a big task to edit through all of that, but once you've read it, once you've made sure you've got as many facts in there in time order as you can, check that it is very clear. And to do that, you need to read that out to somebody. It needs to be to your parents, to an older sibling. You need to read it out loud. That will check the clarity and just see if you're missing any specific language. After you've checked the clarity, make sure you've got the skill of using time conjunctions, specific dates, and time openers in your sentences. That's what I'll be looking for when I see your work. Once you've done that, final little tasks, spelling check. Now, if you've done this on Word, you can run a spelling check on the Word document. If you've written it out, what you'll need to do is kind of underline words that you weren't really sure how to spell, and then use the internet or use family members to check your spellings and change them. Again, when you're reading out, just listen for where your natural pauses are and see if you've missed any full stops and capital letters. Once you've checked, you've got all your facts. When you've checked, you've got your time adverbials. Once you have checked your punctuation, once you have checked your spelling, the last thing is to write it up neat. Now, if you've done it on Microsoft Word, you don't need to write it up neat. You can make the edits and you can send it to the year group email. If you've written it by hand and you intend to write it by hand, then do me a neat right copy. After you've done all the editing, the last thing to focus on is handwriting. Write it as neat as you can, take a photo, and then send it to the year group email address y2@anglesey.beham.scu.uk. There's the kitten coming to say hello. Coming to say hello, Willow. You going to say hello to the children? No? Okay. Write it up in neat and get it to me. I hope you've enjoyed learning about the first moon landing, and through the live video, I hope you've enjoyed learning about space. There's still so much more that you can learn. Professor Brian Cox is very knowledgeable about space, so that's somebody that you might want to look up. But there's so much more to learn, and it's such a fantastic, fascinating topic. When we come back after the holiday, we are going to go back into poetry for a little bit, but we're also going to be putting up some Jane Considine lessons as well for you to follow along with. I'm going to put up some extra work that you can do over the holiday, a little work pack, nothing massive, and you don't have to. It's completely optional, but it's there if you want it. Final thing, after the holiday, the teachers are going to start doing Zoom calls for reading classes. So your personal email, the C number at Beham, I'm going to be sending out a link towards the end of the holiday. And in that link, in that email, that link will take you to a Zoom call when it's the time for our Zoom meeting. And we're going to do some reading groups face-to-face on Zoom. Just to let you know, those Zoom calls will be recorded as well. Right, I think for now that's all from me. So, have a really happy holiday. Have a nice rest. And as ever, happy learning.